You know, my daughter got picked up on, or a clip of hers or video or something got picked up on Candace Owens' channel. That brought a certain amount of eyes to my daughter, Lauren, not Laura. Come on, Candace. Anyway, that brought a certain amount of eyes to her. She mentioned, I think on her channel or something, that this channel, mine. I didn't ask her to do that. It was a nice thing of her to do, helping out old dad a little bit. That's the kind of person Lauren is. Several things I can assure you of here. Number one, you won't agree with everything that you see on this channel, nor should you. But I'd be willing to bet that if you go back in the list of videos, there'll be something that probably strikes your interest. Number two, Lauren is a fascinating young woman. And yes, as a parent, I am proud of her. And it's another thing to, all hope is not lost with the younger generation. You need to get that notion out of your head. And Lauren's a fine example of that. I've known her longer than anyone. And she's the best daughter I ever had. That being said, what are we talking about? Oh, right. Weather modification. Weather modification. I mean, come on. This is some tinfoil hat conspiracy crap. What kind of nonsense? I mean, if you just think about it. Weather modification. A better term for that might be weather manipulation. You better get your tinfoil out. Even in just a cursory little bit of investigation that I did to make this video, I typed in the Googler, weather modification patents, and I was expecting to see 9, 15, something like that. Well, I started counting just to have a rough idea, and I got tired of counting, so I stopped at 200 existing patents for weather modification. Now, the first one was 1891, so this has been going on for a minute. But if we go back, say roughly 1940s, 1950s, then we get to the 1960s, kind of the world has settled down a little bit, but we have this Vietnam skirmish, and wasn't that lovely? No defined objective other than to control communism. Not eliminate it, mind you, but control it. Anywho, turns out in Vietnam every year they have these monsoon rains, storms, massive storms that roll through. And then it turns out that the U.S. government and others, through weather modification, found out how to extend these storms. And so the rain bore down, and the theory was we're going to flood them out. They got all these underground tunnels and stuff. We'll see how that does, when they're filled up with rainwater. They know how to manipulate the weather. And to a certain degree, they know how to control it. This was such a concern that I think by 1976, some international committees got involved, and they came up with this treaty that they made several countries sign, including the United States, that said they wouldn't use weather modification in a harmful way to the environment. That shows you what a concern this is. Well, what's a piece of paper? We got a piece of paper called the Constitution. That's a parchment. But anyway, nobody seems to pay any mind to that. So, you can sign anything. Doesn't mean you got to do what the rules say. I've always been fascinated with the sky, personally, especially the nighttime sky. Constellations and stars. You can see all kinds of stuff at night. If you get out of the city limits and get that ambient light out of the picture, you can see the Milky Way, the very galaxy that we're floating around in, maybe spinning around. Anywho, I'm fascinated by it, and I'm fascinated by the daytime sky too. And so my whole life I've looked up at the sky. Most people nowadays don't ever look up. In fact, they do just the opposite. They're looking down. Maybe they're doing this. Living their best life. You do what you think's best. Point being, nobody looks at the sky anymore, and there's some interesting stuff going on. They have existing patents. Everything from cloud seeding, breaking up fog. Some of this stuff could be helpful. You could bring rainfall to otherwise drought-ridden areas. I could have a crop that year, actually increase food production instead of this increasing trend we see of decreased food production as the population expands. That being said, or that aside maybe, there's all kinds of things in those patents. Everything from cloud seeding, obvious manipulation, the delivery systems, things that were manufactured to slap on airplanes where they can disperse this stuff. And if you look up in the sky, there's these streaks of things going by, zigzagging, sometimes a checkerboard pattern, sometimes arrows with a line through it. I don't know how all that stuff works. Don't know the first thing about it. I know it shouldn't be there. Now, the casual observer might say, isn't that just the exhaust off of jet planes? If you'll watch the sky and see a plane flying over, you do see a little contrail. It's the exhaust freezing because it's at such a high altitude. And it follows the plane and it dissipates as the plane goes by. It's a little, from our vantage point, it's a little bitty streak and it doesn't leave a residue. But then there's other things in this zigzagging. And then if you watch closely, which people don't, it'll start settling out of the cloud, kind of raining down. And it's like, well, what is that? And that never was the case when I was a young boy. This didn't start till about the late 1990s, really amped up in the 2000s. Now you look at the daytime sky, it's just streaks of God knows what everywhere. Some people have done studies. Scientists in Texas took open jugs partially filled with water and set them out and just let the natural gravity, do its course. He tested the water before, when he fresh opened it, and then he tested it after. He found strong evidence of barium and strontium. These are sedatives. You gotta keep the people kind of, So certain days maybe when you're not feeling the best or you just can't get going. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the sky. Couldn't tell you. They figure this stuff out to a certain degree. There's patents on tornadoes and hurricane creation and direction, so you can steer these things to a certain degree. Now, does this mean that every single day that the government's got control of the weather? Of course not. But they found out in certain ways, if they want to spend the money and put the effort into it, that they can manipulate. And what we're seeing now is certain natural disasters hitting. There was one just in North Carolina. Why would the government target Nowheresville, North Carolina, and the Appalachian people? That doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Until you do a little digging and find out there's some serious quartz mines and there's some serious lithium underground in North Carolina. And they want it. And the people that are living on the land aren't having it. They like it there. That's their land. And then so they're refusing to sell. All of a sudden, there's this massive biblical proportion storm, and everything you've had is gone. It's been washed away. So the most prepared person in the world, it'd been the same if you'd done nothing, because all your stuff is ruined, damaged, washed away, and God help those people. That'd be terrible, to put it mildly. Hang in there, people. I hope you fight it to the bloody end. Well, shortly after the storm, here's just these random people offering 3-4 times the value of that land. We'll help you out. You got nothing. You're down and out. Here's 4 times the value of their land. Now, why would they do that? Well, like I said, there's lithium in the ground, and they want it, and you are in the way. Does this mean that those storms were targeted over North Carolina? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I wasn't studying North Carolina before these storms hit. I don't know anything about it, but I know it's underground there. And in the manufacturing of microchips, all this cordless crap, all this solar stuff, you got to have lithium, and the mining of that is dirty business. See, right now, turns out the brown folks down in South America, they're doing the mining for peanuts. Down there with their hands, digging out the cobalt, digging out the lithium with their bare hands, and being eaten alive by horrific diseases. But we don't see that. See, it's down there, and it's those people. Well, now we're seeing things like North Carolina. Or maybe you see things like the wildfires in Hawaii, where that land is valuable and they want it. But if you won't sell, well, something's got to be done, doesn't it? I'm just saying, I don't know nothing. I'm an expert on hardly anything. It's also interesting to see the governmental reaction after the disaster in North Carolina, where FEMA kind of, they put on their loafers and kind of, we'll get there in a minute. I got a sandwich, and then after that, we'll see. And then they get there and they restrict the rescue efforts and the help that poured in by one of the most generous nations ever in existence in humanity, which is America, not the United States. These are two different things. But here's this federal agency restricting the help efforts. Don't give direct help to those people. Give it to us. We'll make sure it's distributed properly. Fascinating stuff. But if you watch the weather, watch the reports of the weather. I know, well, there's a chance of big storms coming in next, whatever, pick a day, Wednesday. Start watching it about Monday. Pay attention to the sky. Take a look at what's going on and see how the wind starts picking up, starts shifting all these streaks through the sky. And all of a sudden, these horrific storms rip through an area that's just never happened before. Now, there's a certain sector of the cacophony of noise that says, well, see, this is your global warming. They don't use that term anymore. They use climate change. Let me tell you a little secret. The climate in general worldwide is more stable than your refrigerator. It's about a 3-degree swing. Now, yes, in the 1990s, the planet did get a little bit warmer. It's like a degree or two. Hey. Oh, we got to do some stuff and some things and have legislation because we got to protect the climate. If that were true, you wouldn't be seeing all the stuff you're seeing. What about the U.S. military? They have, 200 and some bases all across the world. They are the biggest energy user in the world. And using what? Primarily fossil fuels. That alone tells me you ain't serious about this crap. Get out of here with your climate change. It does change. That's what climates do. But pay attention. Instead of looking down all the time, look up and see what's going on above you. Now, is there anything we can do about this? I don't know. You can be aware of what's going on. I kind of like to know what my enemy is about. Seems interesting to me. The droughts, the horrific storms, multiple tornadoes touching down at the same time. All of it pinned back to the government? No. Is it possible that there's some modification going on? Manipulation going on with the weather? I know that there is. I've seen the patents. Have a look for yourself. Type it in the Googler. Look at what they can do. Look at the patents that have been applied for and granted on weather modification. Interesting stuff. If you got a comment, got some things going on in your area, I'd love to know about it. I always read the comments. They're fascinating to me. They're interesting. I like to know what people think. Don't much care how you feel, but I'm totally interested in what you think. But yeah, you put the jazz hands in the comment section. Always read them. Hey, thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. I'll see you next time.